Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett.
I'm Janice Baker. How's your implant going, Malcolm?
Such a personal question. I'll tell you in a minute. And we welcome back one of our favourite people,
Kimberly Douglas, with the answers to the questions by our viewers.
yes, who kindly Facebooked us. And that's next time
On our time. Oh, gosh, look, you've been falling asleep on me lately.
No, I'm not falling asleep. Oh, no, but I did.
What? When?
He put me to sleep.
Somebody did. How on earth did he do it? Because I'd like to know.
Oh, well, I think you'd probably have to bring in a professional, as
Yes, we have, Steve.
Here's Steve Soukoulis. Steve, you've been on the show before.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Your official title is an orthodontist?
Periodontist.
Periodontist.
Periodontist, yes.
What's the difference with orthodontist, periodontist, and what's the other dentist?
Prosthodontist.
Oh, I haven't got a problem with that too, I'm
There's a
sure.
whole
There's a list
bunch
of them.
Oh, okay.
Well, periodontist is someone who works on the teeth and gums, and orthodontist looks at moving your teeth around. So usually it works with kids.
Course.
And,
Which my
braces.
boys had to have done, with the braces. And,
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway,
But-
you didn't have that. What
No, I had teeth pulled out, that's why I'm missing a few. I think that was the way, though, in the 50s.
It was one of the ways to realign teeth.
Yeah, they were frightened of overcrowding, so they just
Correct.
ripped out 4 teeth.
Yep.
God, yes, charming. No wonder. Now, Steve, we know each other because I've had some work done, and he did it just recently. But you've been working on the app so
Yes.
that people can, wherever they are in the world, register what's been done. Just explain that to everybody.
So the application is a web-based application, so you can get online. So it's like using Facebook. There's nothing to download. You go on and you register your implant components, but we've done it so that the dental professionals do it for you, so it's nice and accurate.
That's correct. It all happened amazingly.
Yep, absolutely. And did you? I know you would have got your little
I
email.
filled it in and
You filled
did all the right
absolutely.
thing, yeah.
And so your dental professional does that, and then you have access to that at anywhere in the world. So you can say, for example, you move somewhere, you go to Melbourne or Sydney, you relocate somewhere exotic, you have that information. And the reason that's important is because having that information it carries some pretty important stuff for your dentist to know prior to having to maintain your implant. So
Because until we talked last time, I didn't realise, you just think, well, they're all going to come together and all screw together, be fabulous. But you would have to withdraw an implant to find out where it came from.
Well,
if there was a
you'd have to
problem.
take, so the components, which I've sent you a little diagram of, an implant's composed of a dental implant, which is the screw that sits in the jawbone. The next layer, which I don't do, which is the restorative dentist, the dentist who does the crown work, will do to toothy
bit you see,
The bit you see, correct, is made of composed of the abutment, which is the foundation of a crown, and then the crown itself, which is the custom part. So the 2 bits below, which is the implant and the abutment, they come from manufacturer.
Yeah.
But the crown that then glues onto that abutment is custom made for you.
Yes.
It's just made for your mouth.
To match in with the rest of your teeth.
Exactly
And
right.
do you know, interestingly enough, I don't know whether my general dentist gave me the what do you call it?
The mould or
the mould,
yes.
thank you. And I've still got it from the tooth that was there before. So fortunately, I can have the same looking tooth back again. Isn't that clever?
Absolutely.
Don't ever throw away your teeth,
The old
so to
mould.
speak.
Yeah.
Because dentists
mould.
obviously couldn't keep the thousands of the moulds that they do.
It would be miles
Steve,
high.
how did you get into this form of dentistry? Because I do know that you're a leading light in the profession here.
Well, I started off, I went to a lecture at university on open day, and I wasn't sure about dentistry. And then when I heard the speaker talk, who's probably still there in the university now, I thought, this is quite interesting. So I went into dentistry, and halfway through, I wasn't sure about dentistry. I was sort of getting pretty close, going, I don't know about this. And then I met a couple of other tutors or lecturers that were really interesting people, and then finally I got into sort of a more surgical specialty, which was my forte. So periodontists tend to do a bit of surgery, and that was something that I was very keenly interested in, and it's just developed from there. So, and then implants are a natural expression of that interest, because you require the surgical side, and then you have what we call the prosthetic or the restorative side of things, which is the tooth bit at the end.
Well, your job, though, is to literally cut through and screw something inside.
Correct.
But there are obviously different types of shapes and things that you're going to implant with.
So in your case, we used a special design of implants. And there are currently probably over 600 companies in the world that manufacture implants and over 12 million different types of products.
Good heavens.
So the number of people having implants is increasing every day. And the fact that the difficulty in identifying implants is where we've come from with the registry, because in my lifetime I've seen lots of patients that I don't know, they're new patients with dental implants, and to maintain them I've got to know what's there.
Yeah.
And that makes it a bit different. And where it's from. I've got some Brazilian patients and so on. They've got some interesting odd implants that we have to deal with.
Would you replace them though if you sort of see that patient?
If there's a problem, but ideally we tend to maintain them, but it's nice to know what's there. But if you have to get the bit off the crown that comes off, you need to know the type of screwdriver, because they're all different, to get it off. And if you don't and you put the wrong one in, you can break something.
Yeah. So that's the application.
The need for the application, exactly. So we get things off safely instead of, I hope this works. Close your eyes and
break it. Yeah. Cut it off.
Cut it off.
So you were working with a developer,
an app developer? Yes, correct. In South Australia, yes.
Yes, so I actually know.
Yes, there you go.
Weird? Isn't that the weirdest thing? This is such a small city.
World, yeah.
It is.
So what he's had to set up for you, though, has obviously been all of the software side of
correct.
things?
And it's been quite a challenge. It's taken us a good year to get there. It was really quite a because of the nature of what we're doing, it's complicated. We needed someone here to really help us out.
Because you need a yin and a yang sort of for this, don't you?
Absolutely.
You need the person who's done the implant.
Correct.
And then, as you were saying...
And we've got to link the patient to the people that do the surgery, to the people that do the restorative work, the crown work. Sometimes it can be the same person, but there's a big, huge disconnect. And there are privacy laws because they're medical records, really dental records and medical records. Yes, and so we need to abide by a whole range of different laws. And so we've thought about literally every single step of the way. When a transfer record occurs naturally in an analogue fashion, like a written record, we've basically digitised that and made sure that the privacy elements are there.
And that it can be seen.
Yeah, and it can be seen by the right person, exactly.
Well, we talked about this last time you were on, but do you think this will go to like knee replacements, implant
I think that's our goal in the end. I think we have a very... this is the only online registry in the world.
Yes, you're leading.
Yeah, we're leading the way in South Australia.
Yes, amazing.
So although we do have registries in South Australia, which again we're leading the way, particularly the orthopaedic and breast implant registry, which is in Monash, but the orthopaedics one in South Australia. We're leading the way when it comes to registries, but in terms of an online registry, they're only one in the world. So I've been contacted by people overseas saying, how did you actually get this done? We've been trying for 10 years to do this.
Is that right?
And so actually on Friday or Saturday, I'll meet someone from Sweden to talk to them a bit about the registry. So I think we've done well to get where we are, and we're slowly moving the business forward to really get all we want is lots of Australian patients knowing what's being used in your body, because there are some parts that are coming from different parts of the world, and patients aren't always aware, or dentists are aware, the origins of these components. Because remember I said, although the implant is heavily regulated, because it goes in your body, it's part of surgery, the bit on top, there's a bit of laxity in the regulations. And so sometimes you can get bits and pieces that people aren't aware of what they're made of, and then you get a complication. So my whole premise from the start was I saw a patient with a problem many years ago and went, you know what, we need to fix this problem, because we weren't aware of the parts that were used. And that caused a problem for that patient directly.
Yes, because how long have implants been a reality for people?
Look, in the late 60s, there were the first few experiments in place, and human patients that were utilised.
Right.
And I think it was 1 or 2 years ago where the first patient, or one of the first patients that ever had an implant, had their implant for 51 years, which is amazing.
Right. So how long would you expect an implant to last?
Yeah, that's incredible.
If the lawyers from the companies tell you how long they last, they're usually shorter. But we say a life expectancy roughly of probably 20 to 30 years, but it could be longer. We just don't have your counting. Are you counting? But hopefully it's longer than that. But the data, the studies that we don't have, which the registry will eventually provide the information to people, will be there. But we would say, we're very conservative, say 20 to 30 years, but it could be longer.
Right.
You know, when you have things like that done, though, that your body rejects, do you often have people that reject
That's a
those?
very good question. There you go. So early on when we place the implant, there's probably about a 1% rejection rate, and that sometimes relates to how the implant heals in the bone. But my concern with the registry, what happens later, which is that you can get problems later. Sometimes it's like sort of form of rejection, an infection that affects implants. Yeah. And it's not a small number. It's 1 in 10 patients at 5 years, and in some studies it's up to 1 in 3 or 4 patients. 4 or 5 patients in 10 can have a problem. So it's not a small number. It's nothing that we say it's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance. It's actually maybe 10% or 20% of patients have problems. So we try to identify those patients early on and to treat them early. Whereas if you leave it too long, that's where you get problems with implants, and that's where you may need to take the whole, maybe all of it out, and start again. And we hate doing that.
Essentially, it just becomes part of your body.
Correct.
And you're now able to fill the gaps that are left from the tooth that's been extracted if you're doing the two things together.
So in your case, we took the tooth out and placed the implant at the same time, and we've placed a small graft around it, and that saves you 6 months worth of healing. Usually, in the old days, they'd take it out, let it heal for several months, come back, maybe do a bone graft, then put the implant. Well, we did all of that in one hit.
It's fascinating, absolutely
and
fascinating.
You lived through it.
And I lived through it, and I slept through it, and I didn't know a thing about it.
I wish I'd have been there.
He said to me, "It's a bit of jungle juice going in now," and I thought, "What's he doing?" Steve, stay with us for the end of the show, because Kimberly, our friend Kimberly, is coming up with some good advice and the answer to a viewer's question. See you soon. It was a pleasure to get an email from one of our viewers, because we don't get many.
No, we would like more.
What did it say, Janice?
It was from Katie.
It was.
And Katie has just completed 2 years of aggressive chemo and radiotherapy for cancer, and it's messed her brain balance or mind balance.
Yeah, she's not happy, in other words, so I can understand that.
We thought we'd ask Kimberly, our dear friend Kimberly, to join us and probably help us.
Welcome for this year.
Yes.
We're in the 300s now, 8th year, Kimberly.
Awesome.
Oh, no.
I feel like I've been here all that time.
You have, I think. You must have been.
Yes. Kimberly, it's an interesting question, but it was actually good to get the question too from one of the viewers, because people going through the radiotherapy and chemotherapy, you must be, I know my mum was very flat, and I think you don't really have a great stomach for eating after that either.
No, and this is not uncommon. Some people sail through it. Some people do chemo, radio, and they will work full time and they have no problems. Other people have every side effect and every hiccup. Some people do a mix of both. But one of the biggest things we find afterwards is fatigue, ongoing fatigue, and we call it chemo brain. It's a bit like you'll talk to a breastfeeding mum and say, I've got breastfeeding brain or pregnancy brain. Well, chemo brain's pretty much the same.
Well, I'll never have that.
So no, hopefully not. Well, not the breastfeeding one, at least. I think that's what you mean. So, look, chemo brain, there are side effects. That part of going through rigorous treatment is that your nutrients may not be the same. A lot of people can only do what we talk about is tea and toast. You know, they want something dry, they want cups of tea, and they want dry toast. You know, they don't eat rack of lamb and 15 veg and have their juices, and you'll see people that will sail through and have carrot, apple and beetroot juice, but if you're in the middle of nausea with chemo, the last thing you want is a beetroot juice.
Just looking at it would make you feel
correct. So it works for some. So nutrition wise, if you've had lots of side effects, if you've had inflammation of your gut, you've often had nausea, you've often had diarrhea, then your nutrients aren't great. So the first thing that we find with chemo brain and side effects is that things like your iron and B12 and folate are very low. These are things you absorb from lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, steak, pate, liver,
But
brain.
we're not eating that.
We're not eating those things.
We're not eating those things.
Yeah, so you're going to find that they're nutrients, which is your mental health. So this is
So
your
what do we do?
focus.
Yeah, what
well,
do we do?
I would start with a blood test. I would be straight back to my doctor and say, look, I've just come through this. Could I have some standard tests to just, A, check that everything's okay now? Could I have my iron studies done? You're not asking for anything unrealistic here. Could I have my B12 folate? And here's a big one, vitamin D3. So D3 you get from sunshine, mainly absorb it through your eyes. Yes, you get some through your skin, but not a lot. So I think a few shows back we were saying skin. We now even know you get more through your eyes. So
Really?
people
That's
who,
amazing.
like a nursing...
Because you want to shut your eyes in the sun because
Of course
it's
you
too
do.
bright.
But you know what? If you wear sunglasses, you're not getting any of the D through.
Okay.
So what do we do? Slip, slop, slap, sunglasses
Cover
on,
everything up.
cover everything up. And so if you've been going through rigorous treatment and you've spent most of the time in ologists' offices, you know, so, and you talk to anyone through treatments, they've got a enterologist and a, you know, they
Yes.
whatever.
True.
They've got them heaps of
But
appointments.
do they have a dietitianologist?
No, they have an IST, a nutritionist probably.
an IST, okay.
So, you know, that they haven't spent a lot of time outside, they've spent a lot of time indoors, in bed, recuperating,
Feeling
or
awful.
in hospitals. And we see this a lot with oldies in nursing homes who don't really get to see sunlight very often. And if they do, you're outside with a knee rug and covered over, and the last thing you do is get sunshine on you. So I would suggest I'd start with iron and B12 and vitamin D studies and then get to someone who can treat those appropriately.
And see a bit of sunshine.
Sunshine and
You know
don't...
that old thing of going out for an afternoon, sit in the sun? Do you ever do that?
So
No,
when
not
they
with my
say...
skin.
Well, I think the little jingle is between 11 and 3, sit under a tree. I say no. Between 11 and 3, get yourself 15 minutes
Yeah,
where
that's
you're
what I do.
getting some sunshine. And I'm not talking on a 43-degree day.
No.
We're just get 15
Up
minutes.
to 30 is good for me.
Yeah.
Between 20 and 30. A bit cold under 30 to 20 and too hot under
Over 30.
Yeah, and I
Sure.
do... usually I'd start at the beginning of summer because I have a skin problem, as we've talked about before, and that changes everything for me. The itches go and the red blotches go,
Right.
and I'm just
Feel
15,
much
15,
better.
15, 15. That's what I do.
Correct. Your body needs vitamin D and it thrives on that. So hopefully that will help Katie.
So, Katie, we hope
Katie.
that has been of help, and we also have put Katie in touch with you. So
That's great. Excellent.
Now, I know you have a burning question, Mrs. Janice. Ms. Janice.
A burning question. He throws this at me all the time.
Yes.
Diets, is that what we'll be going
Happy.
Happy. To make us happy. Mood, diet,
and food.
food.
Great
Food.
question.
There you go.
So there's some foods that we absolutely know can make us feel better, but there's also some that are bad. So which ones do you want to do first?
Yeah, let's do the food.
Why do we
The good-
all love chocolate, honestly?
Oh, I know.
Cakes.
know. And chocolate tastes like that, and Brussels sprouts taste like that.
Oh, I don't mind Brussels sprouts if they're bright
I
green.
know.
They have to be bright green.
Right. Salt
So
and
what do you
pepper and a
put
bit
when
of
they're
butter, and you can get Brussels sprouts in.
No, just...
Okay, well, here's the thing with
Is-
copper. Is copper and chocolate is a bad thing, but the trouble is when we eat chocolate, we're going to get lots of endorphins, but in the process we also get lots of copper from chocolate,
Do
so
we?
it can have a double-edged sword.
My mum
So-
had a copper. She used to boil the clothes
Not
before
that
washing.
kind of
Not
copper.
that cold, okay.
People don't know that copper is in things like coffee and chocolate. So you'll have a hit of coffee or chocolate, you'll get the endorphins from it, it will get your adrenal glands going, you will feel better. But in the process of that, you will give yourself a low dose of copper. Now, for most people, that's fine. But if you are someone who suffers anxiety or panic or stress, tormenting thoughts, the amount of people who overthink and come into my office and say, I get these tormenting thoughts, I always think there's impending doom. I always think something bad's going to happen. So these people, when the first question I ask is, do you have lots of coffee? Do you have lots of chocolate? And it's not, and they say, yes, but I can't do without it. It's because the endorphin hit, it affects their mood, they feel better for a while, but the consequence is you're building copper up in your body, which can have an adverse effect then on your mood.
Do you think, like I probably drink 4 cups of brewed coffee a day.
Do
or
you?
Plunger coffee, I
Sure. Then you are getting substantial amounts.
Excepting I don't necessarily have to have that. Like, I don't crave coffee.
Okay.
I just make a big pot of coffee and heat it up as I need it.
So when we're talking about coffee, there's plenty of people that can have a couple a day and they're fine with it. There are people who can be addicted to caffeine and you are only having one a day. So don't be fooled by quantity. It's about the effect that it has on your body.
I don't feel different one way or another, whether I do or not.
Then you're not addicted.
No, I'm not addicted, no.
So my biggest question for people is, if you didn't have a cup of coffee or tea, because there's quite a bit of coffee in caffeine in tea as well. So my question for you is, if you went 3 days with no tea or coffee or chocolate, what would happen to you? And look, people literally manifest at my desk and say, are you crazy? I would have migraines by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
Yeah, that's frightening.
I actually, years ago, had a courier who came in who would have 20 little macchiatos a day.
Oh.
And so every stop, he'd come in, have a quick little espresso or macchiato. And he was telling me he had these chronic migraines and quite depressed. So we made a decision to go cold turkey, to just take him off it. He thought that was probably a good idea. Well, his wife rang 2 days later, say he was literally suicidal with the plummet of just going off coffee. So for him, we had to go to 19, then 18, and
amazing,
over 6 month period. Now, in all that time, the withdrawal headaches were still there, but we didn't get the mood depression and the suicidal tendencies. Now, that's unusual, but I do see people upward of 8 or 10 coffees a day. And you've got to be careful, because when you order takeaway coffee, sometimes it's a double shot already.
Yes.
So if you're doing an instant teaspoon,
make my own.
is different to a plunger coffee, which is then different to a double shot.
So that's interesting though, because it's a valid point. If you make your own food at home and know what's gone into it, if you make your own coffee at home and know what's gone into it,
Sure.
You can control it, but you can't control it when you're just buying over to a coffee
you
shop.
can't.
Sorry, coffee shop guys, but maybe there needs to be some sort of information about that, because if you do have an issue, see, they're such common things, aren't they?
They are. And if you have cardiac issues, if you have a thyroid issue, so I have Hashimoto's thyroid, and I have to be very careful to limit my caffeine to once a day.
Right. Hold that thought. We just need to take a break, and we'll be back with Steve and Kimberly in a tick. Welcome back. We're here with Kimberly and with Steve.
Yes, but we've only spoken about the negatives, haven't we, Kimberly? So
We have.
we need to talk about the positives in our diet.
So what about something really good that would help sleep and mood for people getting off to sleep? Tryptophan. It's in turkey, it's in cheese, it's in warm milk. So all those people that get up during the night and have a nice cup of warm milk, or raid a piece of cheese, or Christmas lunch, big roast turkey, everyone goes out for a siesta. Tryptophan, something to look at for mood.
Well, I didn't actually think it would be cheese, because if you have cheese, it makes you dream. Really,
because
vivid
that's
dreams.
tryptophan. Tryptophan makes you dream.
But it's also sort of good for your teeth, because doesn't the cheese nullify the acid in your mouth?
I'm not sure about that, but the calcium that's in cheese is quite helpful. Yeah, absolutely.
Not
and
the cheese, the calcium.
and milk proteins actually can adhere onto your tooth surface and actually absorb minerals back into the tooth structure.
Oh, look, we won't brush our teeth with orange juice. We'll just gargle with milk.
I don't think
Somebody I know could write a song about that. Steve, is there anything we missed out when we're talking to you?
Oh, no, the last thing was, if anyone's interested in registering their components, then just either contact the Dental Implant Registry, and then we have a website, and or speak to their dentist, and they can then they can contact us if they're not part of the registry.
So we can Google that, that's good.
Absolutely, dentalimplantregistries.com.
And that'll find you.
Yep, absolutely.
And just remember, it's a twofold thing, because it's the person that does the implant and the person that puts in the tooth.
Correct.
How lovely to see you both.
Thank you so much, folks.
Two medical professionally type people on the same program. We hope you learnt something.
We do.
And we hope you keep yourself nice, so we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye.